Hey, quiet travelers of time, dim the lights a little more. Pull that blanket up, let it settle around your shoulders like a warm, heavy pelt. Imagine the only glow in the room comes from the faint embers of a dying fire, casting long, dancing shadows on the walls. Let the world outside fade away just for a moment. Feel the cool air against your face, the soft fabric against your skin. Where are you tonight? Let me know if you feel like sharing. It is a small comfort, isn't it, to imagine us all scattered across the globe, gathered around this invisible hearth, listening to the whispered echoes of a time long, long ago, just like our ancestors did, under the same vast, indifferent sky. Tonight, we journey back, not to a grand city or a famous battle, but to the very edge of human existence, to a place where the world itself felt like it was holding its breath. We're going to a cave on a rock at the end of a continent, a place where the last fire flickered and a story whispered itself into the unyielding stone. The air here is thick with salt and the ancient memory of endless water. You stand at the mouth of a vast gaping cavern carved by the relentless sculptor of the ocean over millennia. This is Gorham's Cave on the southernmost tip of what we now call the Iberian Peninsula. But 70,000 years ago, or even 28,000 years ago, it was simply the edge of a known world, the edge of a great continent, the edge of an epoch. Before you, the Atlantic Ocean stretches out, an enormous shimmering expanse of deep, cold blue merging seamlessly with a pale, indifferent sky. It breathes in and out, a colossal rhythmic sigh that has echoed through this chasm since time immemorial. The waves, heavy and slow, roll in from the vastness, crashing against the sheer, gray limestone cliffs with a sound that is both powerful and deeply, endlessly soothing. It is a sound that has not changed in all the countless ages, a constant primal pulse that beats against the very foundations of the land. Close your eyes for a moment and just listen. Feel the deep rumble in your chest as the waves break, a low, resonant thrum that vibrates through the rock, through the very ground beneath your feet. Then the hiss and whisper as the water retreats, dragging pebbles and shells back into the abyss, only to gather its strength once more for the next, inevitable surge. Imagine the spray, a fine, cool mist, carried inland by the gentle, persistent breeze, tasting faintly of salt in the deep, dark ocean. It touches your cheeks, your lips, a subtle reminder of the boundless, untamed wilderness that lies just beyond your sight. Behind you, the land rises sharply, a rugged, imposing promontory of rock and sparse, wind-stunted vegetation. Farther inland, beyond the immediate shelter of the cliffs, the landscape transforms. This is not the green, fertile Europe we know. This is a continent still largely in the grip of the last great ice age. Vast sheets of glacial ice lie to the north, pushing their cold breath southward, transforming forests into frozen tundras, rivers into icy veins. The trees are gnarled and tough, clinging to the rocky soil, their branches twisted into grotesque shapes by the constant, biting wind. The ground is hard, often frosted, even in the milder seasons, and the air carries a crisp, almost metallic tang of ice and distant, ancient earth. You are standing at a threshold, a liminal space between two worlds. In front, the boundless, eternal ocean, a blue desert stretching to an unseen horizon. Behind, a continent slowly being reclaimed by the cold, a vast, silent wilderness. The cave mouth itself is enormous, a natural cathedral carved into the rock face, offering shelter from the elements, a dark, welcoming maw in the face of such raw, untamed power. The rock here is ancient, worn smooth in places by countless hands, countless footsteps, countless winds. Its surface tells stories of epochs, of geological time that dwarfs human understanding. Run your hand over it in your mind's eye. Feel the cool, rough texture, the subtle undulations and fissures, the tiny grains of ancient stone. It is solid, unyielding, a steadfast sentinel against the relentless march of time and the ceaseless churn of the sea. The light here is soft, diffused, a gentle gradient from the bright, open expanse of the ocean to the deeper, shadowed mysteries within the cave. The setting sun, when it dips below the horizon, paints the sky in hues of deep orange, violet, and rose, reflecting off the water's surface in a breathtaking, silent spectacle. And as the last light fades, the stars begin to emerge, one by one, a diamond dust scattered across a velvet cloth, appearing closer, brighter, more numerous than you have ever seen them. They are the same stars that have guided sailors and hunters for all of human history. A celestial map unchanging even as the world below transforms. Let your gaze drift from the infinite horizon of the sea up to the towering silent cliffs, and then inward into the deepening shadows of the cave. The air inside is cooler, stiller, carrying the scent of damp earth, wood smoke, and something else. Something ancient, something human. This place has been home for a very, very long time. For generations beyond counting, this cavern has offered refuge, warmth, and a sense of belonging against the overwhelming indifference of the outside world. And for all those countless years, the waves have continued their rhythmic song, a lullaby of deep time, a constant soothing presence that whispers of eternity. Feel that rhythm now, deep in your own chest, slow and steady, matching the ancient pulse of the sea. Let it calm you, anchor you, as we step further into the past, into the quiet, fading light of a forgotten age. He sits at the mouth of the cave, a silhouette against the fading light, his form heavy and still like a part of the ancient rock itself. He is not young, not anymore. His shoulders, broad and powerful even in their weariness, are hunched slightly, a lifetime of carrying burdens etched into their curve. His back is against the rough, cold stone, but he seems not to notice the chill. He has known cold all his life, a constant companion, a familiar presence that seeps into the bones. His legs are drawn up, his knees almost touching his chin, his large, calloused hands resting on them, fingers thick and strong, scarred by countless cuts and nicks from shaping flint, from skinning hides, from grappling with the wild. His face, when you imagine it, is a landscape of time. A heavy brow ridge, prominent and protective, overhangs eyes that are deep-set, dark, and remarkably profoundly old. They are not simply the eyes of a man who has lived many seasons. They are eyes that seem to hold the memory of countless generations, a primal wisdom, born of relentless struggle and silent observation. They have seen the sun rise over this same ocean thousands of times, watched storms gather and break, followed the migration of herds across frozen plains, and stared into the flickering heart of countless fires. There is a profound weariness in them, a deep, abiding sadness that seems to have settled there like dust. But beneath the weariness, there is also an enduring strength, a quiet resilience, a flicker of something ancient and untamed. He's not looking out at the vast expanse of the sea tonight. His gaze is cast downward toward the small dying embers of a fire just within the cave entrance. The light from it is faint, barely a breath of warmth against the encroaching chill of the evening, but it is enough to catch the contours of his face, to highlight the deep lines etched around his mouth and eyes. His skin is thick, weathered by sun, wind, and frost, a canvas of survival. A sparse beard, grizzled with gray, frames his jaw, and his hair, dark and matted, falls heavily across his forehead, partially obscured by the thick fur hood of his tunic. The furs he wears are heavy, layered, stitched together from the hides of animals long since gone, providing a bulky, comforting warmth against the penetrating cold. You can almost smell the faint scent of wood smoke, damp earth, and dried animal fat clinging to the fibers of the fur, a scent that is both primal and deeply comforting, the scent of home and survival. He sits alone. There are no others beside him, no children playing at his feet, no women tending to tasks, no other hunters sharing the quiet vigil. Just him. The silence around him is profound, broken only by the distant rhythmic sigh of the ocean and the soft, almost imperceptible whisper of the wind as it eddies around the cave mouth. He is the last watcher, though he does not know it. He does not carry the burden of this knowledge, this terrible, beautiful, lonely truth. He simply exists, in this moment, at the very precipice of his world, unaware that the long, long story of his kind is drawing to its quiet, unwritten close. He is not thinking of grand prophecies or the fate of his lineage. His thoughts are simpler, more immediate. Perhaps he is recalling the warmth of the sun on his face earlier that day, or the taste of the last meal a small bird caught near the cliffs. Perhaps he is wondering about the next hunt, or the coming severity of winter. His mind moves slowly, deliberately, like the shifting of the earth itself, focused on the tangible, the real, the immediate challenges of simply continuing to be. There is a deep instinctual wisdom in him, a connection to the natural world that is almost a part of his very being. He understands the language of the wind, the subtle shifts in the tide, the meaning behind the cry of a distant bird. He is a creature of the earth, molded by its harsh realities, shaped by its ancient rhythms. His breath is slow and deep, a steady, measured cadence that speaks of a body accustomed to endurance, to waiting, to simply existing in the face of immense forces. He is a testament to survival, to the stubborn, beautiful persistence of life. His presence here, at this lonely outpost, is a quiet defiance against the vastness of time and the indifference of the world. He is a living echo, a final fading whisper of a lineage that once thrived, that once roamed vast landscapes, that once held its own against the formidable challenges of a glacial age. And as he sits there, utterly alone, gazing into the dying embers, he embodies a profound sense of peace, a stoic acceptance of his place in the grand, unfolding tapestry of existence, a silent guardian at the very edge of forever. The cave yawns behind him, a vast, echoing chamber of shadow and stone. It is a space that once pulsed with life, a cavern that reverberated with the vibrant, noisy symphony of a thriving clan. But now it is empty. The sounds that once filled this ancient dwelling have long since faded, swallowed by the relentless maw of time, leaving behind only an immense, profound quiet. Imagine for a moment the sounds that once lived within these walls. The sharp, rhythmic clack, clack, clack of flint on flint, as a skilled hand patiently, precisely, napped a raw stone into a sharp-edged tool, each strike a testament to ingenuity and survival. The low, guttural murmur of men planning a hunt, their voices deep and resonant, punctuated by the rustle of furs and the soft thud of a spear against the earth. The higher-pitched, gentle chatter of women, their hands busy scraping hides, gathering roots, or weaving tough fibers, their quiet songs a comforting backdrop to the daily rituals of life. And the children, oh, the children, their bright, uninhibited laughter, once bounced off these very rock faces, echoing through the vastness, a joyful, defiant sound against the harshness of the world outside. Their small, quick footsteps would have pattered across the packed earth floor, chasing shadows, playing ancient games, their excited shouts and playful cries filling every nook and cranny of this enormous shelter. You can almost hear the soft, sleepy breathing of a dozen or more bodies huddled together around a roaring central fire, the crackle and hiss of the flames themselves, the occasional spark spitting into the dark. The scent of roasting meat, rich and savory, would have hung heavy in the air, mingling with the earthy smell of damp stone and human warmth. But all of that is gone now. The laughter has dissolved into the silent air. The voices have been carried away on the wind, leaving no trace. The rhythmic work of hands and tools has ceased. The children's footsteps are no more than phantom echoes, whispers in the vast, empty space. Now there is only the wind. It sighs through the cave mouth, a low, mournful moan that seems to carry the very essence of loneliness. It whistles through unseen crevices in the rock, a thin, reedy sound that could be mistaken for a forgotten spirit. It whispers past the ancient cave paintings, if any still exist, caressing the faded ochre and charcoal, a silent testament to the passage of untold ages. The silence here is not merely the absence of sound. It is a presence in itself. It is a heavy, almost tangible thing, a vast auditory white space that presses in from all sides. It allows the most subtle sounds to emerge, to be amplified, to hang in the air with profound significance. The drip, drip, drip of a single drop of water from a stalactite, falling onto the damp earth with a soft, resonant plink. The faint, almost imperceptible rustle of a tiny creature, a mouse or a beetle scuttling somewhere in the deeper shadows. The slow, steady beat of his own heart, a quiet drum in the vast cathedral of stone, a reminder of the tenacious spark of life that still persists. This profound quietness is a testament to the ending of an era. The last pure-blood Neanderthal sits at the threshold of a cave that once housed his vibrant, bustling community, and now it is a hollow shell. The echoes of his past, the phantom sounds of his loved ones, are almost entirely dissipated, leaving behind only the vast indifferent silence of the natural world. This silence is not threatening. It is simply complete. It is the sound of time moving on, of one chapter closing, of the world making space for something new. And within this deep, encompassing quiet, there is a strange paradoxical sense of peace, a vast, untroubled stillness that invites contemplation, that allows the mind to slow, to settle, to simply be. Let that quiet wash over you now, a balm for the restless mind, a gentle invitation to deep, restorative rest. His gaze, heavy and distant, drifted from the vast and different ocean to the flickering heart of the cave. Not the embers that now barely pulsed, but the memory of a fire that once roared, a symphony of light and sound that filled this very space. He remembered a time when the cave was not a tomb of silence, but a vessel overflowing with life, a warm, breathing sanctuary against a world that was still wild, but not yet lonely. Picture it, not the razor, sharp cold of recent winters, but a different chill, one that promised crisp air and the scent of pine. The air then was thick with the rich aroma of roasting meat, seared. Not just a single, meager portion, but entire haunches of ibex, their fat sizzling, dripping onto hot stones. The smell, earthy and primal, mingled with the sweet tang of wood smoke, clinging to the damp furs, to the rough walls, to the very breath of the people. He could almost taste it now, the smoky char of the crust, the tender, gamey warmth within, tearing it with strong teeth, feeling the juices run down his chin. Around the fire, the cave floor was a tapestry of bodies, a tangle of limbs and furs. Children, small and sturdy, chased each other through the dancing shadows, their laughter echoing off the ancient rock, a sound as pure and bright as a mountain spring. Their voices, high and melodic, were a constant hum, a counterpoint to the deeper murmurs of the adults. The women, their faces softened by the firelight, sat close, their hands busy with bone needles, stitching and mending, or grinding pigments for cave paintings. Foregur, black and red, vibrant against the limestone. Their voices, a low, comforting hum, wove tales and shared secrets, a continuous thread of connection. He remembered the feeling of being pressed shoulder to shoulder, hip to hip, a solid mass of warmth and belonging. The simple act of sharing a meal was a ritual, a profound affirmation of their collective strength against the vastness outside. The men, his brothers and uncles, their faces scarred by hunt and weather, spoke in deeper tones, their hands demonstrating the curve of a spear throw, the precise angle for a flint strike. The air was alive with the soft thunk of a bone tool shaping antler, the rhythmic tap-tap of flint on flint as a new blade was patiently coaxed into existence. These were not the sounds of struggle, but of mastery, of purpose, of a people who knew their place in the world and commanded it with quiet confidence. The forest just beyond the cave mouth was a teeming larder. He remembered the thrill of the hunt, the silent tracking through thick undergrowth, the earthy smell of moss and damp leaves, the sudden rush of adrenaline as a herd of red deer appeared. He remembered the communal effort, the coordinated movements, the shared breath of the chase, and the relief, the deep, primal satisfaction of bringing down a magnificent beast, its warmth steaming in the cold air, a promise of sustenance for weeks to come. There was no question then of scarcity, no gnawing fear of the next meal. The land provided, and they, in turn, respected its bounty. Even the cold was different then. It was a challenge, yes, but not a threat that whispered of extinction. The snow fell heavy and pure, blanketing the landscape in a hush, but the cave was a fortress. The fire fed constantly, radiated a fierce heat that banished the chill, creating a microclimate of warmth and security. Outside, the world might be a canvas of white, but inside, life flourished, vibrant and resilient. He remembered the feeling of sleeping deeply, nestled among his kin, the rhythmic breathing of his tribe a lullaby, the faint scent of wood smoke, of damp earth, of human warmth was the smell of home. He remembered the feeling of safety, a profound, unshakable certainty that tomorrow the fire would still burn, the tribe would still be there, and the sun would rise again, painting the eastern sky with the colors of a new, promising day. This was their golden age, a time of strength and belonging, a memory that now, in the quiet solitude, felt both comforting and impossibly distant, like a dream that belonged to another life entirely. The dream of warmth faded, leaving behind the cold stone and the whisper of the wind. His eyes, still holding the ghosts of that vibrant past, now saw only the present emptiness. The shift had been subtle, insidious, not a sudden cataclysm, but a slow, creeping erosion. He remembered the first sightings, glimpses in the periphery of his awareness, like shadows at the edge of the forest. They called them the new ones, or simply the others. They looked different, taller, leaner, their movements a strange blend of grace and restlessness. Their faces were smoother, their brow ridges less pronounced, their eyes often wide and quick, darting like birds. He remembered the first time he saw one up close, a young male standing on a ridge line, silhouetted against the setting sun. He carried a spear, yes, but it was thinner, longer, thrown with a different kind of force. There was a lightness to him, an almost fragile quality compared to the sturdy, grounded build of his own people. There was no hatred, not truly. More a profound bewilderment, a deep-seated confusion that settled in his bones like the damp cold. Why were they here? The land was vast. Surely there was room enough for all. Yet their presence seemed to ripple through the forest, unsettling the ancient rhythms. The first signs were almost imperceptible. The hunting grounds, once so abundant, began to yield less. The tracks of ibex and red deer became scarcer, their herds more skittish, harder to find. He remembered days of endless tracking, his stomach a hollow ache, returning to the cave with only a few small birds or a handful of roots. The easy bounty of the golden age had vanished, replaced by a relentless, grinding struggle for every scrap of sustenance. Was it the new ones who hunted differently, more efficiently, leaving less behind? Or did their mere presence disturb the delicate balance of the ecosystem, pushing the game further into unreachable territories? He didn't know. He only knew the hunger that grew sharper with each passing moon. Then the tribe began to shrink. Not through battle, not through the roaring clash of spears against spears. No, it was a quieter, more unsettling disappearance. A cousin strong and skilled would go out hunting and simply not return. A family venturing further inland in search of new grounds would vanish, leaving no trace but the silence. The old ones who once held the wisdom of generations seemed to fade faster, their spirits drawn away by the encroaching loneliness. The children, those bright, laughing sparks, grew fewer. The laughter that once filled the cave became a sporadic echo, then a memory, then nothing at all. He remembered the gatherings around the dwindling fire, the worried glances, the unspoken questions. Where had they gone? Why weren't they coming back? There were no answers, only the growing weight of absence. It was as if a slow, invisible tide was pulling his people away, one by one, into a mist from which there was no return. The new ones were always there, in the distance, their campfires visible on distant hills, their unfamiliar calls carried on the wind. They were not overtly hostile, but their presence was a suffocating blanket, slowly pressing the life out of his own kind. He never understood their ways. Their tools were different, their language a rapid-fire chatter that sounded like birdsong compared to the deeper, guttural tones of his own tongue. They painted on cave walls too, but with a different style, depicting figures that moved with an almost ethereal grace, unlike the solid, powerful beasts his people rendered. There was a sense of something alien, something fundamentally different in their approach to the world, a difference that he now realized was ultimately insurmountable. The bewilderment ripened into a profound sense of powerlessness, a heavy, resigned understanding that this was simply the way of things. The world was changing, shifting beneath their feet, and his people, rooted in the old ways, were unable to adapt, unable to flow with this strange new current. He watched with a quiet, aching heart as the echoes of his tribe grew fainter, as the warmth of shared life slowly drained away, leaving him, the last watcher, clinging to the edge of a world that no longer had a place for him. The shadow of the others was not a violent storm, but a quiet, persistent dusk, slowly swallowing the last embers of his kind. Even in this profound solitude, with the vast silence of the ocean before him and the ghosts of his people behind, he found solace in the ancient rhythms, the quiet dignity of work. His hands, gnarled and strong, were a testament to tens of thousands of years of survival, a living connection to every ancestor who had ever shaped stone, cleaned hide, or prepared a meal. These hands now were his only companions, moving with a deliberate, almost meditative grace. He reached for his spear, laid carefully beside him on a clean patch of sand. The shaft, made from a sturdy piece of ash wood, felt smooth and familiar beneath his fingers, and worn to a polish by countless hunts and countless hours of handling. He ran his thumb along the binding that held the flint point in place, checking for any weakness, any fraying of the sinew. It was still strong, but he knew the importance of constant vigilance, of never letting his tools betray him. From a small pouch made of cured animal skin, he carefully extracted a piece of flint rough and gray, waiting to be transformed. He held it in his left hand, feeling its cool weight, its irregular contours. With his right hand he picked up a smaller, harder hammerstone, a piece of quartzite perfectly shaped for striking. He began the ancient dance, the rhythmic tap-tap, a sound that had accompanied his people for generations, a sound that resonated deep within his very being. Each strike was precise, controlled. He wasn't just hitting the stone, he was coaxing it, guiding it, imagining the flakes of flint detaching, revealing the sharp, keen edge hidden within. The small chips of stone flew away, landing softly on the sand, each one a testament to his skill, his patience. He rotated the core, feeling for the perfect angle, the optimal pressure. The sound was hypnotic, a soft clink, then a slightly sharper crack as a longer, thinner flake detached. His eyes, though tired, were focused, intense, watching the stone transform under his touch. He worked slowly, deliberately, his breathing deep and even, a counterpoint to the rhythmic tapping. The sharp, mineral tang of freshly broken flint filled the air, a clean, almost invigorating scent. He could feel the vibrations of each strike travel up his arm, a living connection to the earth, to the raw materials that sustained him. The point began to take shape, a slender, leaf-like form, tapering to an exquisitely sharp tip. He used a bone antler to apply pressure, flaking off tiny, precise pieces, refining the edge until it was razor, sharp, capable of piercing thick hide and bone. He tested it gently with his thumb, a faint prick of pain confirming its lethal efficiency. Once the point was perfected, he laid it carefully aside and picked up the spear shaft again. He unwound the old, worn sinew binding, his fingers adept at untangling the tough fibers. He placed the new flint point onto the shaft, aligning it perfectly with the grain of the wood. Then, with fresh sinew, dampened in his mouth to make it more pliable, he began the arduous process of binding. He wrapped it tightly, meticulously, layer upon layer, his fingers pressing the sinew deep into the grooves, ensuring a bond that would hold fast against the force of a throw, against the struggle of a dying animal. The wrapping was a prayer, a promise of continued survival. When the spear was finished, gleaming and ready, he set it aside. His gaze then drifted to a small collection of shells he had gathered from the tidal pools earlier in the day. There were smooth, iridescent mother of pearl fragments, the spiral curves of periwinkles, and the delicate fluted edges of scallops. He picked up a large, unbroken scallop shell, running his fingers over its ridged surface, feeling the cool, smooth interior. He held it up to the faint light, admiring its natural beauty, the subtle variations in color. He had no specific purpose for them now, perhaps for decoration, perhaps for a future offering, but the act of organizing them, of placing them just so, was a small act of creation, of bringing order to a world that felt increasingly chaotic. He picked up a small, pointed piece of flint and with careful precision began to drill a tiny hole near the edge of one of the smaller shells. The sound was a soft, almost imperceptible scrape, 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 a gentle abrasion of stone against shell. He worked patiently, turning the flint, applying just enough pressure, watching as a fine dust of shell accumulated around the growing hole. It was a slow process, requiring immense focus, a complete immersion in the present moment. Each shell, once cleaned and polished by his touch, became a miniature artwork, a silent testament to the enduring beauty of the natural world, a world that was still there, even as his own kind faded. His hands, calloused and strong, moved with a quiet purpose, each gesture a reaffirmation of life, a final, dignified ritual in the vast, echoing silence. He was not just surviving, he was living, one deliberate touch, one rhythmic sound, one focused breath at a time. The small, dark shape of the roasted seabird lay cradled in his rough hands. It was not a large bird, perhaps a gannet or a swift-flying petrel, snagged from a rocky ledge or found already fallen to the tide. Its skin, once vibrant with life, was now dark and slightly crispy from the heat of the embers. A faint, savory aroma, tinged with the salt of the ocean, rose from it, mixing with the ever-present scent of wood smoke that clung to the cave air and to his very being. He brought it closer, the warmth radiating against his palms, a comforting heat that seeped into the chill of his bones. You can almost feel the slight give of the cooked flesh beneath his calloused thumb, the subtle texture of the feathers, now singed and brittle, still clinging in places. He took a bite slowly, deliberately. The first taste was a burst of rich, gamey flavor, saline and earthy, utterly primal. It was the taste of the sea, the taste of survival, the taste of a small victory against the vast and different wilderness. There was no rush, no other mouths to feed, no jostling for the choicest morsel. Each chew was a quiet, almost sacred act. The soft tearing of the meat, the gentle grinding of his teeth, the slow, deliberate swallow. You hear it, a faint, rhythmic sound in the deep silence of the cave, punctuated only by the soft crackle and sigh of the fire beside him. With each mouthful, a deep, ancient hunger, a hollow ache that had been a constant companion for so long, began to recede. It didn't vanish entirely. That would be too much to ask of a single small bird, but it softened, melting into a gentle hum of contentment. He savored every fiber, every drop of fat rendered by the heat, every whisper of flavor. This was not just food, it was life. It was the sun, the wind, the ocean, all distilled into this small, warm offering. He felt the warmth spread through his chest, a fragile peace settling over him, chasing away the gnawing edge of anxiety that was usually his shadow. The world outside, with its biting wind and its endless encroaching cold, seemed to shrink, held at bay by the flickering firelight and the simple, profound act of nourishment. His eyes, heavy-lidded and ancient, watched the embers glow and fade, pulsed and dim, a mirroring of his own slow, steady heartbeat. The rich, almost oily taste lingered on his tongue, a reminder of the fleeting bounty of the world. He picked at the bones, meticulously scraping off every last shred of meat, gnawing at the joints until they were clean and white. It was a testament to a life lived on the edge, where nothing was wasted, where every calorie was a precious gift. The small pile of bones grew beside him, stark white against the dark earth, a quiet record of his evening meal. And when he was finished, a deep sigh escaped him, a sound of profound satisfaction, a sound that carried the weight of millennia of human survival, expressed in the most basic, fundamental way. A full belly, a warm fire, and the vast, indifferent night held at bay. For this moment, in this small pocket of warmth and light, all was well. The last morsel consumed, the last bone picked clean. He leaned back slightly, the rough animal furs rustling softly around him. His gaze, no longer fixed on the intimate glow of the fire, began to drift upward, drawn by an invisible, ancient tether. Beyond the lip of the cave, where the last wisps of daylight had long since been swallowed by the deepening indigo, the night sky was beginning to reveal itself in all its breathtaking, unfiltered glory. 28,000 years ago, the sky above Gorham's cave was a spectacle almost unimaginable to modern eyes. There was no light pollution, no competing glow from distant cities, only the absolute velvet blackness of space, punctured by a million pinpricks of pure, undiluted light. You can almost feel the crisp, cold air on your face as you imagine him tilting his head back, his thick brow furrowed not in worry, but in ancient contemplation. A river of stars, the Milky Way, stretched like a luminous shimmering ribbon across the cosmic dome, so bright it cast a faint, ethereal glow on the distant ocean. Each star was a tiny burning jewel, some steady and unwavering, others twinkling with a frantic, almost desperate energy, as if trying to communicate across the vast emptiness. He knew these stars, not by the names we give them now, perhaps, but by their patterns, their seasonal dance across the heavens. They were his calendar, his clock, his map, guiding his ancestors for countless generations, and now guiding him. There, rising majestically above the eastern horizon, was the familiar belt of Orion the hunter. You can trace its 3 bright stars with your mind's eye, imagining the stories his people once told about this celestial warrior, perhaps a mighty beast slayer or a watchful spirit. And a little higher, a shimmering cluster of tiny, almost indistinguishable points of light Thadi, the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters, or perhaps in his language, a cluster of shimmering beads, or a family of tiny, watchful eyes. They were always there, constant and unwavering, even as everything else in his world seemed to shift and fade. He spent long moments just watching, his breathing shallow and slow, almost in sync with the vast, silent rhythm of the cosmos. The stars were his only companions now, the only faces that remained the same, year after year, century after century. They watched him just as they had watched his father, and his father's father back through the mists of time. They were silent witnesses to the rise and fall of ice ages, to the migrations of animals, to the slow, relentless retreat of his own kind. In the face of such immensity, his own smallness, his own solitude, became less a burden and more a profound connection. He was part of this grand, eternal tapestry. The same starlight that touched his weathered face had journeyed for thousands of years to reach him, a silent messenger from unimaginable distances. It was a humbling thought, yet also deeply comforting. The stars did not judge, they did not abandon. They simply were, and in their steadfast presence he found a quiet, profound sense of belonging. The cold air, the vast, empty ocean, the silence of the night, fully all of it was softened, made bearable by the silent, shimmering company of the ancient, eternal stars. As the night deepened and the constellations shifted almost imperceptibly across the celestial sphere, his gaze slowly lowered, drawn back to the more immediate, tangible comfort within the cave. The fire, which had been a lively dancing presence hours earlier, was now a mere whisper of its former self. Its flames, once bright and yellow, reaching eagerly towards the cave's ceiling, had receded. They were no longer leaping, no longer roaring with a hungry energy. Instead, they had settled into a more profound, more ancient state. A bed of deep red embers glowed softly at the heart of the hearth, pulsing with a slow, internal warmth. You can almost hear the faint, soft hiss as a tiny pocket of air escapes a cooling log, or the gentle crackle as a piece of wood settles further into the ash. The air, once sharp with the scent of fresh smoke, was now filled with a softer, more mellow aroma of spent wood, a comforting, almost sleepy fragrance. The light it cast was no longer a vibrant, active presence, but a deep, almost liquid amber, painting the rough cave walls in shifting hues of rust and ochre. He reached out a hand slowly, deliberately, towards a gnarled, twisted piece of driftwood that lay beside the hearth. It was smooth from the ocean's touch, bleached pale by the sun, yet still held the promise of warmth within its fibers. With a soft grunt, a sound barely audible above the quiet breathing of the cave, he carefully pushed it onto the dying embers. A small puff of ash rose, swirling briefly in the still air before settling back down. For a moment nothing happened. Then, a tiny tendril of smoke curled upward, followed by a faint, almost imperceptible brightening of the red glow. A tiny blue flame, no bigger than his thumbnail, licked out from the wood, hesitant at first, then growing with a soft, hungry intensity. The shadows on the cave walls, which had grown long and still, began to stir again. They stretched and contracted, dancing with a renewed, albeit gentler, rhythm. They were ancient spirits moving to the silent music of the fire. A mammoth, a saber-toothed cat, a soaring eagle, foreign. Their forms seemed to flicker into existence, then dissolve into abstract patterns, reflecting the stories and fears etched into the very fabric of his ancestral memory. This fire was more than just warmth. It was the heart of his world, the last flickering pulse of his people's long journey. It represented the ingenuity, the resilience, the sheer stubborn will to survive that had carried his kind through countless nights, through unimaginable winters. And now it was fading, much like the echoes of his own lineage. He watched the new flame take hold, a small, vibrant testament to the enduring power of life, even in its twilight. The warmth it offered was a final, tender embrace, a silent promise against the encroaching cold. The soft glow illuminated the lines etched on his face, the weariness in his eyes, but also a profound, quiet acceptance. The fire breathed, a slow, gentle respiration mirroring his own, and in its dying embers, a universe of memories, of triumphs and losses, of joys and sorrows, slowly faded into a deep, comforting sleep. The cold begins its slow, insidious crawl. It is not the sudden, biting wind from outside, but a deeper, more patient chill seeping from the stone floor, rising through the firs, whispering around the edges of the lingering warmth. You feel it first in your toes, a faint prickle, then a dull ache that spreads upwards, a gentle reminder of the world beyond the cave's mouth. Yet the embers still pulse, a dying heart in the darkness casting a soft, ruddy glow that battles the encroaching shadow. Each tiny spark, a brief, silent gasp of light, seems to hold the very memory of warmth, a stubborn resistance against the vast, indifferent cold of the night. Your breathing, which had been shallow and alert through the long hours of watching, now deepens, becoming a slow, rhythmic tide. A gentle sigh escapes your lips, a release of tension you hadn't even realized you were holding. Your shoulders slump, the heavy weight of the day, of the years of the very struggle for existence, beginning to lift. It is a profound weariness, not the sharp, aching fatigue of muscle and bone after a hunt, but a deeper, more ancient exhaustion that settles in your spirit. It feels like the kind of tiredness that comes after a task completed. A long vigil finally ended, a burden laid down. There is no pain in this weariness, only a vast, encompassing sense of peace, an acceptance that tonight, the watch can finally be relinquished. Your eyelids, heavy with the accumulated dust of millennia, begin their slow descent. They feel like ancient stones smoothed by endless winds, now ready to finally close. The flickering dance of the ember light on the cave wall blurs, then softens, then fades into a warm, indistinct haze behind your eyes. The sharp edges of reality, the rough texture of the firs, the faint scent of smoke and damp earth, all begin to soften, to dissolve into a gentle, formless comfort. You are sinking, slowly, deliciously, into a profound stillness. Each breath becomes a deeper wave, pulling you further down, away from the waking world, away from the vigilant self, into the waiting depths of sleep. The last vestiges of sound recede. The distant murmur of the ocean, the almost imperceptible whisper of the wind around the cave entrance, even the soft crackle of the dying embers, unbefriended, they all become muffled, distant, like echoes from another shore. What remains is a quiet hum, the silent thrum of your own being, the slow, steady beat of your heart, a rhythm as old as the mountains themselves. It is a sound of pure existence, a fundamental pulse in the gathering silence. The warmth of the embers, though faint, still seems to radiate into your core, a final embrace against the cold. It is a warmth that is both physical and spiritual, a sense of deep, abiding safety that cradles you in its ancient embrace. Your head bows, resting against the rock, a familiar hardness that has offered solace for countless nights. The stone is cold, yes, but its solidity is a comfort, an unmoving anchor in a world of constant change. You are still, utterly still, and the world outside the cave, with its vast, indifferent ice and its silent, watchful stars, begins to fade into a gentle, boundless darkness. The heaviness in your eyelids is now complete, a final curtain drawn across the stage of the waking world, ushering you into the quiet theater of dreams. A mist begins to gather, not cold and biting like the glacial air outside, but warm and soft like the breath of an ancient forest. It swirls thick and pearlescent around the edges of your fading awareness, blurring the harsh lines of the cave, softening the rough textures of stone and fir. In this ethereal haze, the boundaries between what is real and what is remembered, what is present and what is long past, begin to dissolve. You are drifting, weightless, suspended in a space where time holds no sway, where the chill of the cave is replaced by a profound, enveloping warmth that seems to emanate from the very heart of the mist itself. Shapes begin to coalesce within the swirling vapor. At first, they are indistinct, like shadows cast by a distant, unseen fire. But then as you draw closer, or perhaps as they draw closer to you, they resolve into familiar forms. You see them, standing at the edge of a sun-dappled forest, their figures outlined by a gentle golden light that seems to penetrate the mist without dispelling it. There are the elders, their faces etched with the wisdom of countless seasons, their eyes once sharp and knowing, now soft and full of an unspoken welcome. There are the women, their hands busy with unseen tasks, their low, murmuring voices a melody you haven't heard in what feels like an eternity. And there, most poignantly, are the children, their laughter, a sound like scattered pebbles on a clear stream, rises from the heart of the mist, light and joyous and utterly unburdened. They are playing, chasing unseen creatures among the trees, their small, nimble forms darting in and out of the golden light. They turn their heads slowly, in unison, and their eyes, so full of warmth and recognition, fix upon you. There is no surprise in their gaze, only an expectation of quiet understanding that you have finally arrived. Their hands, strong and calloused, yet gentle, begin to rise, not in a frantic wave, but in a slow, deliberate beckoning. They are inviting you, not with words, but with the silent language of belonging, to step forward to cross the threshold into their world. The isolation that has been your constant companion, the heavy cloak of solitude that has wrapped around you for so long, begins to unravel, shredding into wisps of the warm mist. You are no longer alone. The emptiness of the cave, the silent echoes of what once was, are replaced by the vibrant presence of what always will be in this timeless space. A deep sense of peace washes over you, deeper than any you have ever known in your waking life. It is the peace of homecoming, of reunion, of a journey finally completed. The weariness that had settled in your bones now transforms into a lightness, a buoyancy that lifts you effortlessly. You feel your body begin to stir, not with effort, but with a gentle, almost imperceptible grace. You are rising slowly from the cold stone, from the dying embers, from the last watch. Your feet, which had been rooted to the earth, now feel light, eager to move. You take a step, then another, towards the beckoning figures in the mist. The ground beneath you is soft, yielding like moss underfoot, and the air around you is fragrant with the scent of pine and damp earth, a scent that speaks of home, of belonging, of a time when the world was full and vibrant. The mist enfolds you completely as you walk, a gentle embrace that erases the final vestiges of the outer world. You are walking into memory, into dream, into the heart of your people. The figures grow clearer, their smiles brighter, their eyes full of an ancient love. There is no more waiting, no more watching, no more enduring. The era of the Neanderthal, that long, arduous, and ultimately profound journey through the ice and the dark, is not ending with a roar or a cry, but with a whisper, with a gentle, peaceful dream of reunion. You step forward, into the light, into the warmth, into the welcoming arms of your ancestors. The mist closes behind you, soft and silent, leaving no trace, only the quiet, rhythmic pulse of the ocean beyond the empty cave. He has closed his eyes. The last pure Neanderthal, curled in the embrace of Gorham's cave, has surrendered to the profound ancient call of sleep. The embers have faded to ash. The cave is silent, save for the eternal whisper of the wind and the rhythmic breath of the sea. Yet, he is not truly gone. His story, the story of his people, does not end here in the cold, silent stone. It is a story that has woven itself into the very fabric of time, a thread that stretches from that ancient cave to this very moment, to this very room. To you, consider for a moment, as you lie in your own bed, warm and safe, the quiet miracle of your own existence, the lineage that brought you here through ice ages and migrations, through countless dawns and dusks, is not purely Homo sapiens. No, a whisper of his world, a flicker of his spirit, lives within you. Scientists speak of it in numbers, in percentages. Perhaps 2%, perhaps a little more, or a little less. A small fraction, they say, of your very DNA. But what does that 2% truly mean? It is not just a chemical code, it is a memory, it is a legacy. That small percentage is the echo of his resilience, the imprint of his strength against the biting cold. It is the memory of hands that chipped flint into tools sharper than any modern steel, hands that knew the texture of animal hide and the warmth of a shared meal. It is the instinct that makes you seek warmth when the temperature drops, the primal comfort you find in the glow of a fire, even if it's just a screen. It is the deep unspoken understanding of silence, the quiet awe you feel when you look up at the vast, star-strewn sky. He is your ancient grandfather, your distant, silent ancestor. He lives in the way your hand instinctively grips a cup, in the way your eyes adjust to the dim light, in the subtle curl of your lip when you smile. He lives in the protective instinct. You feel for those you love and the quiet courage that surfaces when faced with the unknown. He is in the very breath you draw, a continuous, unbroken chain of life stretching back through 28,000 years, from the silent cave to your soft bed. His journey, which ended in such quiet dignity, allowed yours to begin. His struggles, his fears, his triumphs, however small, contributed to the tapestry of humanity that now includes you. You are the dream he never knew he was dreaming. You are the warmth, the safety, the abundance that his shivering ancestors could only hope for. Tonight, as you drift deeper into sleep, remember him. Remember the quiet strength, the enduring spirit, the profound connection to the earth and the stars. Feel the warmth of your blanket, the softness of your pillow. Hear the gentle rhythm of your own breathing. Let the echoes of his ancient world settle within you, not as a burden, but as a source of profound peace and belonging. You are not just yourself. You are a living library of human history, a vessel carrying the stories of countless generations, including his. Let his peaceful slumber guide yours. Let the quiet dignity of his final rest bring a profound calm to your own spirit. The tigers are long gone. The ice has retreated. You are safe. You are home. Good night, ancient watcher. Good night, silent survivor. Good night, inheritor of their memory. Sleep now, deeply and peacefully. Rest